right after World War II, the question was what to do with Russia, the USSR. War had just finished, and so the first response, the first idea was détente, be friendly. That was the idea for FDR. He said, look, we've just finished war, it's time to calm down. Let's be friendly, we'll talk, we'll dialogue, we'll meet, and try to have a calm time. That was for a short time, but that worked for a short time. In 1946, a new idea was coming. The second idea in 1946 was coming around, and in 1947 it was really spelled out with some different policy papers. The second idea was containment. Containment. Don't let the communist idea spread. Russia has it. Don't let them spread it out to other places. Containment. Don't let that idea spread out. In the 1950s, especially in Korea, that meant physically, don't let communism spread. Physically, don't let it spread. That was the idea of containment. And throughout the Cold War, we saw that idea as it would go through different phases of containment and almost a little bit of détente. But then in Ronald Reagan time, his election signaled a new strategy. Rollback. Rollback. Communism has spread out. It's time to push it back. Look at our universe. With Satan's rebellion, we have something similar. Revelation chapter 12. Revelation chapter 12. Here in our universe, with Satan's rebellion, there's this question about what to do with Satan's rebellion. For a short time, the idea seems to be friendly. Here, Revelation chapter 12, verses 7 and 8. There was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought in his angels, and prevailed not. Neither was their place found any more in heaven. So, for a short time, there was dialogue, there was talking, there was some discussion, some debate. But then it says that there was no place for them anymore. But for a while, there had been a little bit of talking and a little bit of discussion. But that was quickly over. Verse 9, Revelation 12, verse 9. The great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceives the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. Verse 9, containment. Earth. Just here on earth. The universe, mostly fine. Just if we can contain this rebellion to this one place, we'll leave it here. So this idea of containment, just leave this rebellion of Satan here on earth. A moment, I forgot my book here. One moment. You're loud. This is Desire of Ages. I forgot to bring my copy here. Desire of Ages. Here it is. One moment. This is not original creation here.
Oh, no.
Yeah. All right, here we go. Now, as we enter the third phase here of rollback in the Great Controversy, looking at rollback, the idea is destroy this rebellion here. The deception of sin had reached its height. All the agencies for depraving the souls of men had been put in operation. The Son of God, looking upon the world, beheld suffering and misery. With pity, he saw how men had become victims of satanic cruelty. He looked with compassion upon those who were being corrupted, murdered, and lost. They had chosen a ruler who chained them to his car as captives. Bewildered and deceived, they were moving on in gloomy procession toward eternal ruin, to death, in which is no hope of life, toward night, to which comes no morning. Satanic agencies were incorporated with men. The bodies of human beings made for the dwelling place of God had become the habitation of demons. The senses, the nerves, the passions, or organs of men were worked by supernatural agencies in the indulgence of the vilest lust. The very stamp of demons was impressed upon the countenances of men. Human faces reflected the expression of the legions of evil which they were possessed. Such was the prospect upon which the world's Redeemer looked. What a spectacle for infinite purity to behold. With intense interest, the unfallen worlds had watched to see Jehovah arise and sweep away the inhabitants of the earth. And if God should do this, Satan was ready to carry out his plan for securing to himself the allegiance of heavenly beings. He had declared that the principles of God's government make forgiveness impossible. Had the world been destroyed, he would have claimed that his accusations were proved true. He was ready to cast blame upon God and to spread his rebellion to the worlds above. But instead of destroying the world, God sent his Son to save it. Though corruption and defiance might be seen in every part of the alien province, a way for its recovery was provided. At the very crisis when Satan seemed about to triumph, the Son of God came with the embassage of divine grace. Through every age, through every hour, the love of God had been exercised toward the fallen race. Notwithstanding the perversity of men, the signals of mercy had been continually exhibited. And when the fullness of the time had come, the deity was glorified by pouring out upon the world a flood of healing grace that was never to be obstructed or withdrawn till the plan of salvation should be fulfilled. Rollback, that's the idea there. But rollback means war. Luke chapter 1. Luke chapter 1, I'll read verses 26 and 27. Luke 1, 26 and 27. In the 6th month, the angel Gabriel was sent from God into a city of Galilee named Nazareth, to a virgin espoused to a man whose name was Joseph, of the house of David, and the virgin's name was Mary. That means house of David. So that means that there's a dynasty, because David, his son, and they continue to rule. There's a line that has a claim to a kingdom. And God says he will fight for it. Genesis chapter 1. Genesis chapter 1, I'll look at verses 26 and 27. Genesis 1, 26 and 27. God said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness. Let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the fowl of the air, over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps upon the earth." So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him. Male and female created he them. There's a physical rule that God was talking about. This dominion over the earth, a physical rule over the earth. That word dominion. And God says he will fight for it. War was prophesied long ago. You know, there was a woman standing beside her husband after they had eaten the fruit, and what that meant was they were in rebellion against God, the God who had created them. Genesis 3, verse 15. God says, "I will put enmity between thee and a woman, and between thy seed and her seed. It shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise his heel." God there is talking about war between the two sides, between God and Satan, and there in his line and Satan. War between the two sides. Back to Luke chapter 1, where we were reading. Luke chapter 1. Luke chapter 1, verse 28. The angel came unto her and said, "Hail, thou that art highly favored, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women." That promise that God had made to Eve is now happening to Mary. What God had said would happen to Eve, that she would have the seed, that it would beat Satan, it's now happening in Mary. Verse 29, when she saw him, she was troubled at his saying, and cast in her mind what manner of salutation this should be. And the angel said unto her, "Fear not, Mary, for thou hast found favor with God." You know, the the virgin birth is not a sweet, gentle, innocent Christmas story. It's scary, because if we actually understand it, we understand what it means. It's kind of scary because in the virgin birth, in this virgin girl, in Mary, God is saying that he's declaring war. Notice what God is doing when he delivers Jesus without a man. Without any man involved, there's no human biological father. He is shattering human pride and human self-dependence. So much of what we do, we think, yes, I can do this. But when you read through all those genealogies there in the Bible, those long, boring lists, they do actually have all of them have one thing in common. They all die. Right? They're all dead, right? It's all, eventually at some point in time, they die. Rest in peace. That's it, right? They all die. Everyone has earned the wages of sin. Death. In all those thousands of years, there's never been a single one who could stand up and defeat the snake. Right? Yeah. There was never one who had taken control of the earth. Every single one of them could be accused. Satan could say, nope, this one has sinned as well. And so every single one of them could be accused by the snake. If God had left the human race alone, we never could have reproduced ourselves out of the curse we're in. We never could have brought for ourselves some sort of deliverer. Right? There's just nothing that we could do for ourselves. Instead, there has to be a new start. Rollback. Regime change. War. Luke chapter 1, verse 32. He shall be called great, and shall be called the Son of the Highest, and the Lord God shall give unto him the throne of his father David. And he shall reign over the house of Jacob forever, and of his kingdom there shall be no end. The angel gives a word of scary judgment here in verse 32. He says he will be great and will be called Son of the Highest. That's scary, because if he's going to be great, then that means he's going to be powerful. He's going to be able to rule, and he will be Son of the Most High. God with us is not a sweet and comforting notion to sinners. When Eve and Adam, when they rebelled against God and ate the fruit, then God came down into the garden. What did they do? They took off running, right? They wanted to go hide. They don't want God with them, and as sinners, we don't really want God with us. They wanted to hide from the presence of God. We naturally want to hide from the presence of God with our sin, and that's judgment. We don't want God in our presence. We want to be left to ourselves. We want to be free. We want to be left alone. Isn't that what so many people say? We want to carry on and to live our lives without the intervention of God. And here in Jesus, we see that God is coming to you. Verse 33, he shall reign over the house of Jacob forever, and of his kingdom there shall be no end. Psalm 2, where I had to call to worship today. Psalm 2 describes his reigning. Psalm 2, why do the heathen rage and the people imagine a vain thing? The kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord and against his anointed, saying, let us break their bands asunder and cast away their cords from us. That's the natural response of sinful humans. We say, no, we don't want that. We don't want God ruling over us. All right? He that sits in the heavens shall laugh. The Lord shall have them in derision. Then shall he speak unto them in his wrath, and vex them in his sore displeasure. These are words of judgment here. Yet have I set my king upon my holy hill of Zion. Right? He didn't just end up there. God set him there. God planned it so that Jesus would be the king there in Zion. I will declare the decree. The Lord has said unto me, thou art my son. This day have I begotten thee. Ask of me, and I shall give thee the heathen for thine inheritance, and the uttermost parts of the earth for thy possession. Thou shalt break them with a rod of iron. Thou shalt dash them in pieces like a potter's vessel. These are words of judgment. God is coming as Jesus for judgment. You know, the fact that God has come in the virgin born Jesus of Nazareth means that you will have to face him. He came here as a human, as a little baby, As a little baby, little babies can't control their arms, they can't walk, can't do much, right? Jesus grew up, even through a teenager time, right? Those are tough years, teenager years. Young adult. As an adult, he carried a burden, he had work, and he lived every moment of his life perfectly. He lived every single moment of his life perfectly. That means that you will have to face him, and Jesus, as a human, can look you right in the face and can say, you're not perfect. That's judgment, right? Isn't that judgment for him to look right at you and to say, you're not perfect? But Jesus came here not only for judgment, he also came here for mercy. We also have mercy here. Jesus can face Satan, and he can face Satan, and he can say a human can live a perfect life. Because that was Satan's rebellion. These rules, nobody can follow these. And Jesus can look him right in the face and can say a human can live a perfect life. You lie. This means war. Jesus substitutes his perfect life as a human for our sinful life. And as he's our substitution, he takes us out of Satan's dominion. Right? He takes us out of Satan's dominion. That's war. At the same time that Mary finds out that she's pregnant, satanic powers go to work. Satan tries to kill him multiple times in multiple ways. Satan tries to tempt him. But as Jesus wins, he's turning back Satan's powers. Right? Throughout his entire life, he's becoming a hardened veteran against temptations and sin. And he's turning back Satan's power. At the cross, Jesus removes guilt and condemnation. He takes us out of Satan's dominion. Isn't that war?
Yeah.
You think Satan's happy about that?
No.
Starting as a baby, Jesus is at war with sin. Some of us, we may not say it, but we act in a way that suggests that the way to beat sin is to just hide it, try to minimize it, and we'll deal with it ourselves and try to work on fixing it. But God is saying to us with the virgin birth being the key word, not somebody else's ability, but God doing it, you can't fix this. Right?
Yeah.
There's no way that we can get out of this. You cannot win this war alone. We need to be driven to dependence on God.
Amen.
You trust in Jesus, but do you see the fact that Christmas is violent? Christmas is war. Christmas means that the enemy of God is being rolled back by the power of a new man, the little baby Jesus. Perhaps what we all need this holiday season is to be reminded of the warfare going on around us, and then to praise God for fighting our enemy in a surprising and unexpected way.
Amen.
Our King starting as a little baby. Our closing hymn is number 223. Hymn 223.